How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, doing well. Sorry I had to reschedule on you. I had a bit of an issue on Monday with my car, so that's all taken care of. And yeah, happy we could reschedule. Appreciate your flexibility.
I'm glad you did. It's sometimes, and and this will be part of the questioning. And by the way, sometimes these meetings do go off the rails, so I'm warning you kind of now. Um, the problem is sometimes people and maybe the first question will be you when you receive the email with this long form.
Sure.
I am so curious as to what prompted you to fill in this like long ass form. I know for me, I get something that has like 5 fields in it, and I'm going, okay, that's too much work, and I just
Right.
toss it in the trash. So, like, I'm really touched that you filled it out. So, what prompted you to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, like I'm always open to new types of experiences and new opportunities, and I thought, hey, cool to come meet a new individual and maybe talk some shop about manufacturing and supply chain and all that good stuff. So I just kind of figured it was a prerequisite. So it's like, well, I better fill it out and put
Well,
some thought
it
into it.
it was, but I'm impressed. I mean, it's not what I do, so I'm always curious about like why people go through those lengths. And you and they're long answers. So it's not as if you're just like yes, no, and like fill in a phone number. Uh, so I thank you for being here. Uh, this is it's a casual conversation. It really is.
Sure.
For me, there's no other way. I'm curious about the podcast name of Manufacturing Mavericks because we had to throw manufacturing in there because that is our core focus. But Mavericks is a rather, for lack of a better word, an arrogant type of word. And as a humble guy, I'm still like I'm really interested in what people think about the podcast name because it's gotten all different kinds of responses, and I love to hear what people have to say, their opinions.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question too. I think I didn't necessarily think of it as arrogant per se or anything like that. I think it's maybe more just trying to put a focus on really an industry that's kind of the backbone of our economy in a lot of different ways. And there are really smart, talented people that are driving the industry forward and are coming up with new ways to innovate and things like that. So I just kind of viewed it as, trying to, um, I guess, give people who are in this space or interested in this space a platform to talk about how we can move it forward and maybe not view it as such a boring thing. It's not always. I think if you're not necessarily involved with it, it's maybe not the most exciting thing to hear about. But yeah, there are some mavericks in this industry. I thought it was a kind of cool name. So
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that because it's I'm always when you read, and as you know through LinkedIn, you read people and some of them just talk so highly about themselves. The minute you read that description of it, you go, oh man, this guy is like just so full of himself, and he probably can't do half of what he talks about. So
right,
I'm
right,
always a little cautious about that. Uh, I think that in order to better understand who you are now, I'm really curious about the path that you took from being I don't want to say a boy, but a young man how did your journey take you from what you thought you were going to be to who you are now? I'm so curious about that. I know for me, I wanted to be a doctor. And the only reason I wanted to be a doctor was because my dad wanted me to be. And obviously, the route has taken me very circuitous, but I'm very curious about how people start out their ideology when they're young men or women that think they can change world hunger at the snap of their fingers. So I'm very curious about your journey to get to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I kind of just fell into this. It's I think probably a similar story to a lot of people, not just in this sort of niche, but in their careers in general, right? I think a lot of people do kind of find their passion through the things. It's not necessarily I want to be a basketball player, and so that's all I'm going to be putting my efforts into. Life just kind of takes its path, and then you find passion in the things you find that you're skilled at that you maybe didn't realize before, and that's kind of how I found it. So I was pretty listless, I would say, as a young man, especially in my late teens and early 20s. I didn't necessarily have a specific path that I was really wanting to go down, like kind of those obvious hopes and dreams of being a musician or being an athlete or things like that. But um, I'm currently happy with those things just being hobbies, and I kind of realized pretty early on that maybe that wasn't the best way to find a career path. So I was actually working in retail, just doing working in a produce department at a grocery store. And I always had a really good work ethic as a kid, and that was kind of something that set me apart, surprisingly. I felt like a lot of the people my age when I was 18, 19, they were maybe similarly listless, but also just didn't really put any effort into their work. And so that allowed me to move up and move into a management position to where I was managing the entire department. And that's something I never thought I would have enjoyed, but that's really one of the things I came to love about myself and about what I wanted to do. And that was kind of leadership and managing people and trying to help, foster growth in people and maybe give them guidance where I didn't have so much as a young man. So I did that for a few years, and man, it's backbreaking work. I was working. I'm currently based in Utah, and I was working up in Park City, and the ski season up there is just absolute madness. And I was working 16-hour days, and just like wasn't worth it. Every holiday, every weekend, and thought that like I really got to find something else. And I had taken a break from school. I had done about a year and a half of university, but was again kind of just not really sure what I wanted to do, and I was spending this money, and I just didn't know, if it was worth it to keep doing it just because kind of society tells you've got to go to school right after high school, right? So
Yeah, I did it as a parent. I mean, when we were raising our kids, it was like, okay, you're either going to school or you're getting out and
yeah,
getting a job now. There is no
yeah,
option. If you're living in this house,
you're
there
right.
is no option.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think you've got to get some life experience, but school just wasn't at that time in my life. I wasn't disciplined enough. I didn't know where I was going, so I wasn't quite as goal oriented as maybe I should have been. So I took a break, and that break has lasted 10 years. So maybe someday we'll go back and get a degree. But my sister actually was working in supply chain at another company, and I always looked up to her, and she offered great career advice. And she was like, man, a lot of the things you're doing in your produce department are pretty applicable to supply chain and things like that. I'm managing inventory, I'm demand forecasting, and really managing my own business, so to speak, within the store itself. And so I ended up before one of my last ski season, I was like, I can't do another season up here. So I ended up quitting without having anything lined up, just for my own physical and sort of mental health. Which maybe wasn't the smartest financial decision, but it ultimately was maybe the smartest decision I've ever made. Because I think if I would have stuck out and just kept doing it, I would have just stayed there forever. So did some stepping stone jobs in between there, and that's kind of where I found ProDataKey, which is where I'm currently at. And they had an opening in their production department, managing the production facility, and had a bit of a friend of a friend type hook up. So got an interview, and next thing you knew, I was managing our manufacturing, and more supply chain responsibilities kind of fell my way. And the company was really young at the time. We still are, but we're growing really rapidly. So I've just kind of grown with the company and learned a lot more about supply chain in general, and have come to really enjoy that aspect of the job. And I get to solve problems every day and try to help people grow, and that's really what I get the most satisfaction out of. So yeah, I kind of just fell into it, and feel extremely lucky and extremely grateful to have fallen into my current role, and into a company that wants its individuals to grow along with it. So I've had the opportunity to get some promotions and things like that, which have been really gratifying and humbling. So yeah, that's kind of turned into just sort of a long journey of sort of self-discovery and figuring out my sort of place in the world. So that's where I'm at now.
Well, I think that your sister gave you some really good advice.
Yeah.
I think that supply chain is vital. And I think if COVID taught us anything,
Yeah.
it taught us the importance of supply chain and the lack of support behind it. It was basically flying by the seat of your pants and crossing your fingers. So
Yeah.
I think that you're in a wonderful profession. Now, tell me perhaps a little bit about ProdataKey. Like, what do they do? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I was rushed off another call. So, and always I do the LinkedIn kind of, investigating, because I like to feel semi-intelligent before I get on. So tell me a little bit about the company itself.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. So we are a cloud-based access control manufacturer. So access control isn't necessarily a term that everyone's super familiar with, but everyone's familiar with the actual product. So the way I usually describe it is, most of us have been at a door that's locked, that has a reader, and you've got an RFID credential or a fob that you hold up to that reader, and that gives you access to the building or that door. So we designed the software and hardware behind a cloud-based version of that system. And that's kind of what set us apart initially. We're still a really young company. We just started about 11 years ago. So maybe not quite in that startup phase, but not quite, not too far after it either.
But you survived that startup phase,
Exactly.
the proverbial, and I don't know the percentage that survive 1 to 4 years, and so you've gotten past the critical phase.
Yes, exactly. So that's where we kind of separated ourselves in the industry, was being cloud-based. A lot of our competitors were what's called on-prem, so basically had a server on site where you had to be on site to make any adjustments to the software or to the hardware, whereas our system was, all cloud-based. You can do it from anywhere on any device, which is obviously where the world was already moving to at that time. So we're based here in Utah, and we've got about, well, I'm not sure, I don't want to give specific head count or anything like that, but we're still hungry and scrapping and kind of treat it as if we are a startup, and we've got a really wonderful group of individuals and That's one of the reasons I've stayed here. This is my going on 7 years next year. And that's one of the reasons is we just have a really awesome team. Love getting to work with everyone here. And that's kind of, half the battle when it comes to enjoying your work is enjoying the people you work with.
So are you just software or are you software and hardware? Because I'm becoming more aware of the hardware side of it. You're seeing more, or at least I'm seeing more innovation in the keyless entry, variety of different locations, not just, tapping and fobs, but, the new door handles, new door locks. I'm actually looking for one now myself.
Sure.
So are you just hardware? I mean, just software, or do you do the hardware as well?
We do the hardware as well. So we have our own line of readers and credentials, as well as kind of the brains behind those units that actually create the rule system and create the management software that a tenant can use or a building manager can use as well. So yeah, we're both. We're kind of a tech company, kind of a manufacturing company, a little bit of both. So
and which one came first, the chicken or the egg in that case?
I would say probably hardware, because we did start with on-prem, but they're kind of tied together. But I think as we've grown, the software side of things has gotten much more mature and much more technologically advanced. So right now, I think our software is kind of what sets us apart. Our UI is really, really friendly, user friendly, and we've seen a lot of competitors kind of just cop what we've been doing in a lot of cases there. So, but we still obviously, take hardware very seriously, and that's a big part of our business. But SaaS and recurring revenue is huge for us and I think what really helped us to get past that startup phase is having that recurring revenue and being able to get into the black. So
offer service that way, because it also becomes a much more manageable cost for your client.
Yeah, exactly.
So that actually, it leads me to and I think in a way you answered it. There may be, an expansion on that, but it was, as you put it, your competitors are basically following what you're doing. And sure. I know it because I'm in a very similar situation where you are in a field that, I'm not going to say a large playing field, but there's a specific niche playing field. And the only way that you are going to lead is by being innovative. Usually what's happening is your competitors are sort of catching up to you, but they don't realize that you have that next release right around the corner that, again, is going to take you and differentiate you from what they thought they were catching up with you. So how do you innovate? What is your innovation cycle? What is the process behind it? How do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we have a great product team here that's really responsible for all of that. One of the things I think we do really well is listen to our dealer base. We have kind of an interesting business model where we sell into security distributors who then sell to the security installers who then sell to the end user. So we kind of almost have 3 separate tiers of customers, but that security installers, they're on the front lines and they're using multiple different systems. And I think we've done a really good job of doing sort of roundtables with our dealers and understanding where the system needs to go. Nobody's going to have a better understanding of the challenges that, installing a system than the people who are actually doing it. So I think that's step one is making sure we're sort of having that foundation of meeting the expectations of the dealer base, which doesn't necessarily always lead to innovation, right? Because innovation is usually something that the masses aren't thinking of. So for us, I think it's sometimes does come down to borrowing from other industries, other tech firms and companies that aren't in this space, but are maybe doing some things that are applicable, and iterating on technologies. Right now, Bluetooth was a big thing, and getting Bluetooth credentials, and sort of the next step there is NFC, which is a more secure communication and a better experience, and that people are comfortable using. So I think our industry is sort of moving that direction, and same thing with the level of security as well. There's sort of multiple. I won't go into too much technical detail, but there's some sort of legacy stuff that's not as secure in terms of the communication from the credential to the reader, and the reader to back to the controller. So those are all things we're looking at, and how can we be on the cutting edge of that technology, and making sure we have the most secure system, the easiest to use, and what other technologies can we maybe borrow from other industries to make our system better. So our product team, like I said, does a great job, and they have things that I'm not even aware of that I know they're working on. So
sometimes it's better not to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So from a manufacturing perspective, how do you go about the manufacturing process? What is your procedure from, we'll call it, I like to call it from concept to reality. Like when you think of something new, when you want to develop a new product, what is the process? How do you manage that from beginning to end?
Sure. So we have some really great manufacturing partners that make it a pretty smooth process for us, that we've done, these prototypes and betas and things like that with in the past. So, initially obviously comes from our engineering and product teams, determining, X new product and getting a timeline for us. And that's usually once the concept has been created, where I'll get involved with our manufacturing partners and our factories, potentially getting some engineering resources from them and seeing if there's any suggestions they have for making the enclosure better, or making the test fixture better, or something like that. So that's kind of the foundation, making sure everything fits nicely and we can test everything as we need to. And how does that look like? Are we doing that in our warehouse or in another warehouse? Once we have that foundation, we'll typically start with a few prototypes that our engineering team will play around with before, hopefully moving into a beta. And we have a list of dealers that give us really great feedback that are part of our beta program. We'll send those beta units out and really just use that as getting feedback.
Tell them to break it. Tell them basically to break it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Find as many as you can.
You mentioned something interesting, and this is because this is my specialty. You mentioned timeline, because timeline is critical. What you typically see in the product development phase and in the production phase is there's we'll call it, from specification sheet to proto to beta, all of the, and when you mention timeline, my ears perk up, because that's the difference between the people that manage that process statically via spreadsheet and those that manage it dynamically via some tool or another. And that's what I'm always, because it relates more to me, and although this isn't about me, or I try to make it not about me, it's how do you do that? Like, what is the technology that you use to take it from spec to asking your distributor to break it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of timelines, we're not unfamiliar with a spreadsheet. We've definitely gotten better at managing that. We used to have, our product team's relatively new in terms of the maturity of the company. So we used to really have people wearing 4 or 5 different hats, and that was really difficult to manage the timeline. Right now, I think I like what you said about active versus static. I think we do a good job of managing that actively, whether it's like, weekly touch bases or things like that. In terms of the technology, I'd have to ask our product team a little bit more about what they use, but I know, Gantt charts have been super helpful for us and getting everyone on the same page and be able to just really have a visual representation. I think that's a huge piece of it, being able to see what that timeline looks like. I know they use.
I think that should be something we can touch base on at another point, because
Yeah,
most definitely, as the more I listen to you, the more I'm going, okay, there's a follow-up conversation to this.
yeah,
So I try to be cognizant of time, and I like to allow a bit of time extra, because things tend to run long on most of the time. Uh, so one of the things that I want to do, with your permission, is when I do the broadcast of Manufacturing Mavericks, I like to promote it on LinkedIn. I like to be able to promote yourself, your company. And what I usually prefer, if it's okay with you, is I like to get that 30-second to 1 minute, that I don't really want to call it an elevator pitch, because we try to keep things a little more casual than that.
yeah,
But I want to put up a short little snippet on LinkedIn
yeah,
that will intrigue people enough to want to listen in on a half an hour, 45-minute podcast. So do you have something? And I always offer it two ways. I say we can either do it now live, or you can kind of think about it and we can just do a little snippet after. But
yeah,
I think that becomes really important to begin to engage the LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is not, I'm finding that it's losing some of its professionality. I think that, unfortunately, they used to do a good job of policing it, in terms of, this isn't Facebook anymore, or this isn't Facebook, this is a business network.
yeah,
And unfortunately, I've seen, sadly enough, October 7th, when the Israeli-Palestinian conflict happened, and I want to try to stay apolitical, so I'll call it a conflict. The LinkedIn became a battleground. Interestingly enough, it's not a political battle. You don't see a Trump versus Harris. You don't see that. But that has taken on a very prevalent, in my opinion, and I think it's turned a lot of people off of LinkedIn in general. And while it's a really valuable tool, I still think it's the best thing to get the message out there for people like us.
sure.
So if you have that little sound bite, or if, like I said, whether we'd like to do it now or at a later date, I'm fine either way. But I do want to encourage that little bite to be able to intrigue people to listen, because you do have something to say. You're an eloquent young man. You are very clear in the how you got to where you are, what you do. You're the epitome of that small company that's come out of one phase and entering into scale. And I think that that's important for people that are looking for manufacturing and innovation. I think that becomes important at a
Yeah,
more humble level, because some of the people I talk to, they're just like, they're big guys. And what you like to have is, you like to have a well balanced team to represent. So I would love to, if possible, get that soundbite from you. So I don't know if you would like to do it now.
sure. Yeah. Let me. Well, first of all, I appreciate the kind words. That's awfully nice of you to say. I appreciate it. But are you looking for mostly kind of just like elevator pitch for myself and the company, or what is a typical soundbite usually gear towards?
It, it's a really interesting question,
Sure.
because I get asked every time I get asked that same question. And to be honest about it, I'm not sure if it's really about you or if it's about the company. There's usually some magic that just comes out of that spontaneous opening yourself up. Like I had one woman that was actually when we talked about it, and because she's coming to the end of her career,
Mm,
I had her tearing up because what it's doing is you're invoking emotion. You're trying to get that little spark that is going to go, wow, I gotta listen to more of this. So it's not necessarily about the specific, standing up in front of a VC and giving them an elevator pitch. It's not as much about you or your company. It's just something that is going to want to make you watch more of this.
yeah.
So you can be as creative as you want. There's no guideline to it. That's why I'm saying sometimes it goes off the rails because it can get, they can get rather intriguing. So I'm opening you up to anything that you are comfortable with doing. With the pressure on you, of course, if they don't watch it, it's like your fault.
That's fair. That's fair. That's a lot of pressure, but I think I can handle it.
Okay,
Um,
good. Well, yeah, I knew you could, but like I said, I like to, I have fun with it. For me, if I'm not enjoying the people I'm talking to, if I'm not like enjoying my time here,
yeah,
it's wasted. Like
yeah,
this is, you know, this occupies a lot of my day that I could be doing other things. So at least I want to be enjoying myself when I'm having these conversations.
yeah, absolutely. Um, okay. Well, let's see. Does it typically, I know this probably gets asked too, does it typically start with an introduction or do you want me to just go for it?
All what I do is I listen to what you said. Like I watch where you are, and I just snip it where I feel it's a good part, a good
Yeah.
start, and it's a good end. And then I will send it to you. I'm not just broadcast. I won't broadcast it without you seeing it and giving me feedback. And if you don't like it, we can do it again. I have, it's, I understand that I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay.
And yeah, so, but I always get your permission
Yeah.
to broadcast it first. So if you don't like I had this one woman that was tearing up. Um, I caught her, no makeup, no lips. This was like real. This was authentic. And
Yeah.
then when her boss saw it, it was like, oh, well, I'm not sure if that's the best introduction for our company. I mean, for me, it was incredible. Like it was really tear jerking. But for the company, it was a different story. So I always let you see what we're going to do
Yeah. Yeah.
and make a decision if that's what you want to be broadcast.
Sounds good. Well, I did take an improv comedy class about 2 years ago, so maybe that will lend
There
itself.
you go. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Is you want it to be like you want people to love you the minute they see you.
Right. Right. I'm not saying it'll be funny. I'm just saying I'm used
No,
to.
no, no. You know what I mean. Like you want them really to, it when you're watching TV
Yeah.
and the comedian, like, you've got Saturday Night Live, for example. When that guest host comes out there, some of them are just like you want to watch it. Some of them, it's just, oh man, like Saturday Night Live. They may have been around for 50 years, but this guy shouldn't be doing it. So, it's you want them to really love you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I'm just gonna go into it and we'll see what happens.
Cool.
Um, okay. So my name is Brad Nottingham. I'm the director of supply chain at ProdataKey. But ultimately, my title doesn't matter. I'm someone who loves leadership and fostering growth in those around me. And that's why I do what I do. I found this passion, um, or rather, maybe it found me. I was sort of a listless young man that didn't really know what he wanted to do in his life and found my way into supply chain and manufacturing and it's been an extremely gratifying journey, and ProdataKey has helped me along the way, and we have a really powerful mission to protect life and property. So yeah, we're doing great things, and we are trying to innovate in our space, and we aren't just trying, we are doing that. And I love our team, and I love what we're about, and I look forward to just future growth. That's what I'm all about, is personal growth and trying to just be 1% better every day. And you can do that no matter what industry you're in, no matter what, station in life you currently have. And that's really what I love and love talking about. So this has been great to get to meet Allan and talk shop a little bit. And yeah, I think these types of conversations also help you learn and a little bit more about yourself and why you do what you do. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Perfect. I mean, that was a really well composed one. Like I said, I gotta compliment you. That's probably like up there, like ranking at the top. You were really well composed. You delivered a great message, and I think more than that, you spoke to people to inspire them to pay attention. So that's great. So I have one more question.
Awesome.
And I'm always careful about how I word this one because I hear the cliche far too often. If you were to, and I was just talking to someone in Scotland this morning, so we were referring to it as the pub. But if you were to walk into a bar and just sit down, have yourself a drink at the end of a day, and some young individual comes, man, male, female, comes and sits next to you, and you just start talking. Young individual just starting out in their career. What would you say to them to give them a little wisdom? Wisdom is depending on, like I said, I'm an older gentleman, so to me I call it wisdom, but guidance, help, mentorship. What would you say to this individual that you're sitting next to over a drink?
Man, I love that question. I think there's about 100 things I would want to say, so it's hard to distill it into just one, but
it doesn't have to be one. Like sure. I said, that's why I leave a couple minutes here, because it's never that simple.
Right. Some of these things will sound cliche. I think oftentimes cliches are cliches for a meeting because there's power behind them and there's truth behind them. But I think for me, the biggest thing that I had to overcome to be successful, and not just professionally, but in a lot of different areas of life, is being okay taking uncomfortable risks. That's something growing up that I was very scared to do, to be completely honest with you. And what I had mentioned of kind of taking the leap and quitting a job that was a good financial sort of foundation for me to find something that suited me better, that I would be happier with, I had to take a risk. And oftentimes that doesn't always mean it's going to be successful for you, but you will always learn regardless of if you succeed or fail, and you'll learn more when you fail. So be okay taking risks and be okay failing. I think that's maybe the most important thing, and that's something I kind of have to tell myself every day, because again, I'm a pretty naturally risk averse person. But I think that, tied with a healthy work ethic, that will always get you places in life regardless of what you're doing. I truly believe that, especially in the United States. So if you work your butt off, or if you're working at the drive-through McDonald's, if you should work your butt off. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Every job has honor in it. Every job has what's the word I'm looking for? Value. I don't say that McDonald's position to say it's of lesser position than mine, but I think societally it's viewed that way. So I think just working your butt off and taking pride in what you do, regardless of what you do. So maybe those two things, being risk averse or not being risk averse, and working really hard, are a couple of them. But again, I mean, I love talking about this stuff, so I could give a couple more, but I'm curious. Do you have something, Allan, that what's your typical response to this same question? Maybe I can learn.
I think that for me, it's about curiosity.
Mhm.
I love to explore. I like to take an idea, regardless of what it is, and follow it down the rabbit hole and just see where it leads me. I've run into multiple, like I said, I come from a wildly varied background. I came from manufacturing to technology, like a 25-year chunk in manufacturing to 15 years in tech. And it's all been about curiosity. Just wondering about something. Can it be done better? How am I doing it now? And how can I improve on it? And that's gotten me to where I am now.
Yeah.
Like I said, the not being afraid, and all of that is you sum that up really well. I find that curiosity is the one thing that keeps my mind working. And that's something that I feel that I need to do every day.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
sometimes it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but it's something I need to do. But I thank you for that. You are the first person that has ever asked me.
Okay.
So that in itself is just it's a testament to your character, that you are not just a good orator, but that you are a good listener. So I thank you for that, and I'm so happy that we were able to reschedule and we had this opportunity. I will follow this up with an email to show you the little snippet. Sure. And I'll send you on a link about a little bit about more what we do, because like I said, I'm not sure if you were curious and looked through LinkedIn, or if not, I'll just drop it in your lap. Absolutely. And I'm always here. Like I said, let me know what you think, and if there's anything that you're curious about, let me know, and we can have a follow-up conversation to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I appreciate you having me on, and appreciate your time. This was really fun. So thank you.
It was great, and like I said, this is going to be an incredible episode. I came from a Scottish accent this morning where I had trouble even understanding I love the topic, but the conversation was a little more complex. You are very clear, very succinct. It was wonderful.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate it again.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, sounds great, Allan. Okay. Take care.
Take care.